Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town Council meeting for October 15th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Corey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ingman. Councilor Callow. Present. Councilor Christopher.
Here.
Councilor Boncory.
Here.
Councilor DeMarco.
Here.
Councilor Farino.
Here.
Councilor Conti.
Present.
Vice President Lettieri.
Yeah.
President Vecchio.
Here.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes for October 1st.
Motion.
A motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Public comment. Public comment. Yes.
I'd like to urge the council tonight when you're doing the Center Business District review that you follow along with the planning board's recommendation regarding the middle school and the rink and the auditorium, that they not be put into the Center Business District now, but that they be put in at a later date after with some different rules, qualifications, or whatever, than the rest of the Center Business District.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes.
Hi, I'm Julia Wellers, Precinct 2. I just wanted to give you a brief update after our last Transportation Committee meeting. We had an issue come up during public comment regarding a four-letter word, snow. And it was a little early for that, but we wanted to provide some recommendations based on the input that we received that people feel very unsafe walking around the town, especially people using wheelchairs or with mobility impairments, and that they feel that the snow clearance rules are not being enforced. So hopefully we're a couple months out from this being an issue. We thought this would be a good time to maybe take a look at what our ordinance says, look at ways to enforce it, to make it more effective so that it doesn't feel like a game of Pac-Man trying to get around town when you're on foot during snowstorms. So that we can put that into writing for you guys. I just wanted to bring that forward publicly. And then second, I wanted to give you an update on our bus work around bus improvements and the Better Bus Initiative here in Winthrop. I'm not sure if the town manager has updated you, but we should be getting good news very soon about the bus stop signs. So we can finally have signs on our bus stops. That contract has been signed and it should go to the sign shop so we can get those marked and throw a big party the day that we have our first, properly marked sign with the route, the destination, and all that. And then building on that, our committee provided a series of recommendations for bus stop shelters and amenities at the request of the town manager. And I realized they didn't actually share with the council what those recommendations were. So I have printed out our recommendations for you. And we did an analysis of all the bus stops in town and which ones had the highest boardings and which ones had the spatial allocation where we could actually put a shelter, because the T is actually doling out funds to construct bus shelters, which would dramatically improve the overall bus experience combined with signage. What a big upgrade that would be. So those stops are Main Street at Douglas, Pauline at Woodside, Pleasant at Buchanan, Veterans at Washington, Shirley at Washington, Shirley at Veterans, and Preston River. So we took pictures of all of them and have a little analysis, and hopefully we'll be hearing good news about that. And then our third and next step for improving bus service in Winthrop will be to talk about striping, so that our stops are actually, you can properly enforce the parking in the bus. People actually know what that is. So that's my very brief update.
Very good, Julie. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Come around.
I'd like to agree with Council President Gill. The map you have for the Center Business District, I don't think it should include the middle school property or just the rental property at this time. We've tried it for a long time. We've been asking for, and the planning board worked very hard to try to create a map of what the existing Center Business District is. There's been a lot of confusion. It's a long story, and you've heard me talk about this many, many times about this thing. We're close to getting that done. I think if you're going to include that you're going to change the zoning for the middle school property, that should only be done after public notice, public hearings, the involvement of the neighbors, and taking into account I don't think mixed use properties would work on the site, but that's something to be decided during that process. I don't think we need more storefronts in Ingleside Park if we can't keep them full in Winthrop Center. And the only type of multi-unit building that you can build in the center business district is mixed use, requiring a commercial property. On the center business district, you had 2 petitions tonight that deal with parking under the center business district regulations. The first one, one of them deals with a $2,000 buyback. Right now, it's been on the books. Nobody has told me that they like this and think it's a good idea, and they don't think it should be repealed. But it hasn't happened. Nobody's done anything with it. Not only does it say that once you establish the amount of parking it's required in the center business district, the developer can buy their way out for $2,000 per parking space. But it even gets more bizarre than that, because it talks about the monies going into a center or downtown development parking fund. That fund doesn't exist. And if it did exist, you couldn't designate monies that have to go into it. The only way they can do that is to put the money in the general fund and have the council appropriate it into such a fund. So the second petition is to take a look at the 3/4 of a parking space. Again, we've asked repeatedly for this review to take place. It hasn't happened, so we're going to file petitions around the particular matters and so forth, and hope that the council will take up the substance of this thing in a way that was promised to us over and over again, but never delivered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Anyone else who's to be heard? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Jack Dowd, Precinct 3. I did look for the new map on the Winthrop website, but I was not able to find it. I was wondering if anybody else was able to find that map on the Winthrop site. Do we have a map available tonight that's a new map for tonight's meeting?
We do.
Thank you. And I have a question, if I could. Is the public hearing that comes up next, I believe, is that on the...
There's no public hearing. That was a misprint. It should have been public comment.
All right.
Anyone else who's to be
So I'm
heard?
not prepared, but I still have the floor. Thanks, sir. I was prepared for a public hearing, and I couldn't find the map. Is the map available on the website?
My understanding it is.
Under plans and presentations, is that what it is?
Or is it Denise?
I believe it's a new website, am I correct? Thank you.
What's it under, news?
Yep, under both,
It's under both.
town council, planning board, under board.
I'd like to comment on a planning board meeting that took place on March 13th, 2017. Our concerns on the project at Echo, Morton Street, the bridge, and the park. And I've said many times that I'm very concerned with Article 97's disposition of the land. That is open space. It is conservation property. At that meeting, there was a little discussion about the project. At that meeting, Mr. Carroll states that it's a good project for the town. And Mr. Boyce was at that meeting also. It was stated at 2 public meetings that that bridge would be built on town-owned and state-owned property. I was at those meetings. So once again, according to Bob Carroll, it's a good project. It was discussed. That project was discussed at a planning board meeting. I'm very concerned about the project at Ingleside Park. This $10 million project that we're studying to facilitate the development at the center. It's a stormwater holding tank. If anybody's looked it up, it's a very intricate project. I don't know if it'll do any good in a big storm, as Phil mentioned the other day, because basically the whole area is a holding tank. So if there's a big storm, 1 or 2 or 3 inches in a couple of hours, you're going to get flooding regardless of that project. The reason I mentioned the March 13th, 2017 planning board meeting was because that bridge is built on private property. Some of it's built on town-owned property, some may be built on state-owned property, but for sure, it's built on private property. That could pose a problem to the town. I don't know what the outcome of building on someone's private property could be, but I'm sure that's not going to be great for the town, or, as Mr. Carroll said, good for the town. So I'd like to see this project at Hillside Park be opened up to the public. I've asked for that to be done. I can't find that project on plans and presentations for the town on the town website, because I'd like to take a look at it. There should be more people involved in a project like that, a $10 million project, but the town is going to have to pay for after the fact to maintain it, and who knows what else could possibly happen down there. So I'd like to see that process come out of the town manager's office and be shown in daylight, so people like myself and other people interested didn't know what's going on. If the public was informed that they were building a bridge on private property, there might have been a different outcome for that project. It was supposed to go through Article 97 disposition of land, changing the use of open space. I've mentioned it 24 times. This council, the Conservation Committee, the Planning Board has yet to go forward and put the property, Ingleside Park, or any other property that should go before Article 97 through the process. It's an open and fair process. Everybody in the town will know about it. You can go to meetings and discuss your opinion, and it might be a better outcome than a bridge being built on private property. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else wish to be heard? Going around?
Yes, Mr. President and Town Council, I don't want to reiterate what my husband Tom Riley just said, or former Council President Mr. Hill, but I think when we look at the middle school and the surrounding buildings, I'm not sure what that's currently zoned as. It may be zoned as residential. And from what I believe, and I think the facts bear that out, so that, you know, just advocating for a process to be followed, and what, you know, if zoning is to be changed in that area. And my point is one of public relations and advertising. As Mr. Dowd has said, and others, the residents, the abutters, the neighbors need to know. I mean, I'm talking flyers at the door. I'm not talking the last page of the Winthrop Sun transcript with the legal notices that nobody reads. I mean that sincerely, because in a lot of ways, you know, we wouldn't be in the fix that we're in with the CBD if that was done. I mean, to the point where, you know, people who are sick of hearing you saying there's a meeting tonight at such and such to discuss the change of the zoning of the middle school and what the implications are for that. I'm going to just switch to Ingleside Park. Again, I'm looking at that kind of globally. I look at that as our Boston Common is to Boston, Ingleside Park is to Winthrop, and what Central Park is to New York City and Manhattan, Ingleside Park is to Winthrop. And I mean, we need oxygen, and the trees and the greenery in that space do contribute to the making of the oxygen, so we can all breathe good air. And I know somebody's gonna segue on airport and on this, but I think you would agree that we need all the good air that we can possibly muster here in our little town. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, Gregory Kersey from Precinct 1. I actually was present at the meeting where Ingleside, the vote was taken to discuss changing the center business district for the middle school. The middle school is empty, is abandoned, is not going to be reused. It's sat there for, 10 years now? From what I understand, it's costing somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 a year. Right now, there's a bonfire in Ingleside Park that we don't see, that's burning money. That's $2 million that could have been used for something. It's time that we get the process going forward. There are a lot of people that this town consistently says no and stops so many processes. So many things just get stuck and don't get done, and the taxpayer is paying for that. All of us who own homes are paying for that just to sit there while people wax on. I haven't heard a single suggestion from any of the people here who are opposed to something happening there to any positive thing or any that will contribute to the town or reduce the tax base in any way. All I hear is, no, let's not do it. I think that the rationale for including that in the center business district was that there is no defined zoning for the district, and therefore an RFP, for example, can't even be, there can't even be a proposal made for it legitimately because nobody knows what the property is. It has to at least begin with some underlying zoning definition, which once the process begins, we decide to change, could be changed in the future also. Zoning, we're in the process of changing right now. Before anything happens to the actual property, that zoning could change again. But there is no opportunity, and that is that bonfire in Ingleside Park is just going to continue until somebody moves the ball forward in some direction. And I think this is an opportunity to at least advance it a little bit towards let's make a decision, because it's costing too much money. We're talking $1 or $2 million now for it just sitting there. That's a chunk of money that could be used for something practical in the town.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Deborah Coon, Precinct 2. The topic, the Airport Hazard Committee. I'd like to say that I find it very important that that committee seems to be getting new members and getting up new energy. The past committee's been good, but we have a really big challenge coming forward for the town. Development's important, but if we're flooded with airplanes all night, that's going to make our situation even worse and our community harder to sell as a good place to live. I hope that with the reinvigoration of the committee, the town council will take up reports from them more often and get more of us involved. The airport's very powerful, but we are not powerless. And we've talked mitigation, and clearly the communities on the waterfront, Precinct 2, Point Shirley, etc., I think need financial help, new windows, whatever can be done. But I think more than mitigation, we need to get on how much we can take and what are the limits. Because we're reaching limits where habitability is a question, and the studies of the numbers of airplanes flying over homes, the expansion of the airport hours, my understanding was always it was limited to 11 to 5, 11 at night to 5 in the morning was no fly. The airport is now saying they're going 24/7. Yeah. This is not acceptable. We don't necessarily have to just accept whatever they say. I hope the committee will be used by the town council as a focal point to really take charge here. We need organized action here. in order to protect development. You can build all you want, but nobody's coming, okay? If it's not a livable place, nobody's coming. You can't sell it. So I consider it an urgency with the expansion of the international terminal. Those planes are giant. They take off late at night. They come in early in the morning. They make a lot of noise, more than any other plane. They're huge, okay? Those of us who watch them, you know, can tell you if you haven't seen this, but I'm sure you have. That's going to be a significant increase in international flights and airport noise and pollution, air pollution as well as noise pollution. And I wonder why it is that the airport does not have to go through any kind of federal permitting process for a large development that is occurring on waterfront. And I don't know, we have lawyers in the room, maybe they have done some process, I'm not sure. I haven't seen Concom take it up at all, I haven't seen anything happen in Boston. I read something where they answered Boston people asking about this by saying, we're doing a development on land we own. Well, we all do developments on land we own. I don't know anybody in their right mind that would do a development on land they didn't own. Okay? But that doesn't mean they don't have to go through a federal process. The state does not trump the federal government as far as I know. And I don't understand why there hasn't been any public comment, public hearing, any kind of an airing of this huge project that is about to go on in the airport. So I urge town council, please take this seriously. Thank you.
I'm Peg Roberts. I live down the point on Willow Street. I've lived there since 1978. And the planes have been untenable lately. They're constant. 13 seconds apart, less than that. You're just hearing one go by and another one's going by. They're two at a time above my house. My house shakes. I have 2 little grandchildren next door. I called. I got a letter today that just said, basically, they can do whatever they want to do, basically. They said, in August, there were 5,096 flights from runway 9, which goes right over my house. So that means that if you were going to put 31 days into that, it would be 164 flights a day. But they're more than that because they don't fly over my house every day, 4 or 5 times a week. And, you know, I've called. I go out on my front porch on a beautiful day and I can smell jet fumes. And I worry about my grandchildren. My daughter had a birthday party down the park for them, down Coffey Park. And my sister-in-law couldn't believe she's from out of town. I mean, that's where the kids play. And you can touch them. It's worse than it's ever been. And, you know, they say it affects your heart, it affects your sleep, it affects the kids' ability to learn, affects my nerves. It's wicked, wicked. And I don't know, I mean, other cities, I read today that there are other cities that have, you know, stopped things legally. I mean, is there an environmental lawyer that could help us? I don't know who buy my house. I offered to sell it to the airport.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Let's do this.
My name is Nick Siotis, Precinct 5. And I want to make a couple of points. I've been attending these meetings for 3 years. Initially, nobody in 2014 in the center neighborhoods was, I will say this again, informed there were going to be changes to the ordinances that were going to be impactful and were going to affect everybody's quality of life. There was representation in our district by our counselor for 11 years, and nobody knew. We came to our first meeting about 3 years ago. We were told it was posted somewhere on Town Hall, and it was posted
in the Winthrop transcript. It's not acceptable. To me, it breaches ethical practices, something that impactful. We've come to the conclusion as a neighborhood, we have given the previous councilors a neighborhood proposal that talked about quality of life, the issues that everybody else is talking about here tonight. It was never commented on, nothing was brought up about it. It was as if the report never came in. Neighbors stood here and asked some type of feedback, nothing. Other people put together a petition, which is our legal right according to the charter. It was filed on May 27, 2018. According to the charter, some decision had to be made within 30 to 90 days. There was no decision. It was tabled 6 months later in January of 2019. We are looking for, and I believe it's getting better, transparency, trust, and truth. I believe what the previous speaker said made sense to me. If you're going to change an entire business district or bring over the business district to precinct 2, then everybody in that precinct should be notified and should take place in the democratic process. Same thing goes with Fremont Street. You just can't do what you did to us, to Fremont Street. You have to notify the people on Fremont Street. You are agents of the public. We cannot be coming to every single meeting, but we have. We've given you our trust. There are serious issues going on in Winthrop. I have a report here from 2005. I'm going to read it just quickly to you. It was done by the Town of Winthrop Open Space and Recreation Committee in 2005, and it says here, according to the Office of Executive Environmental Affairs, Winthrop has the capacity for an additional 190 people and 83 housing units before it is built out. Now, we have had 83 housing units, okay, in the last 15 years. We were built out years ago. We are saturated. Our traffic problem is just ceaseless. Now it's coming from Revere, going out of Winthrop 25, 30 minutes. The impact from the airport has been made public on every major news station. Terminal E is going to be expanded, and they're talking about the traffic being unbearable, and it's going to affect us more than anybody else. I think before the council makes any move or any expansions of maps, the entire community has to be involved here. The developers got every single advantage. There was no safety net for the neighbors, residents who have been here 50, 60 years, generational residents. It was almost like we were invisible. So I'm pleading with the council to be prudent. We are the #1 congested town in the state of Massachusetts, 42nd nationally. And we're going to try to build another 1,000 units, I've heard, in this town. My neighborhood, Cottage Park Road, Bartlett Road, Woodside Ave, are congested. You can only park on one side of Cottage Park Road because the fire engine could not get down that street when there was a fire at the Vanderlinda home. So the town did the right thing. Park on one side, safety first. Now we want to put 30 rental units down there. I believe that the residents should have the input and maybe have the right to say, you know what? We're not really totally in favor of residential units and rental units. Maybe we can do condominiums where people have more responsibility. And I think that's the talk in the street. We know we need some development, responsible development, but we would rather see development of condominiums where people have a responsibility and are part of the community. I think it would benefit the entire town if, like the previous speaker said, whatever movement is made, be it at the middle school or be it anywhere else, that all residents affected in the precinct should be notified by mail. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Hearing none, we'll close up that section of the meeting. Oh, I'm sorry.
Cheap seats over here.
I didn't see you, Bob.
That's okay. I'll be brief, I know you guys will just. Bob Carroll, Precinct 6. The middle school became functionally obsolete the day the override vote was cast on November 5th of 2013. Since that time, citizens advisory committees were formed to advise the town council's economic subcommittee on what to do with both the CBD and the middle school site. The study was completed in the spring of 2017. It had made multiple recommendations on how to move this area forward. I know, I'm sure you guys have read all of the 200 pages of that report, but I will not read them all here to you. I just want to do the last paragraph of the conclusion of the executive summary. Unlocking the potential of the former middle school site should be one of the town's top priorities. This will require reaching consensus of a development strategy, implementing appropriate zoning to achieve those goals, and initiating additional studies such as infrastructure analysis, the study of traffic, and to move the community's development vision closer to a reality. With these efforts, there must be immediate focus on prioritizing public realm improvements that address urban design deficiencies, implementing a complete streets policy, and revitalizing public spaces such as Front Square are the logical first steps. With a solid framework in place, the key variables identified, it will be essential to educate the general public on what is and how to technically assist and financially assist some of the small businesses, and inform larger development and the potential outside to sort of come and help us. And I just want to reiterate a point I heard earlier. So since 2013, we knew this was coming. There's been a lot of people thinking about it. I've heard many ideas on what that site could be, from refurbishing the theater to become something like Lynn's Auditorium, to a hotel, to mixed use. What I don't hear anyone advocating for is to spend $200,000 a year for nothing, which is what we're doing right now. So I would urge the town to move forward, try to get to yes somehow. I understand there's a lot of fear about the hockey rink. Leave the hockey rink out. But just move forward with the big pieces of that site so we can move forward. I mean, I think the hockey rink should be in as part of the bigger conversation, but I get it. I can't have it all. Just move forward on this, please, and let's not waste any more time. There's a huge conversation that needs to be had about what that site wants to be. A lot of different opinions in this room, a lot of different opinions on Facebook and outside this room. So let's start the next phase, which is a conversation about what we want to be, and stop talking about 2014 and just move forward. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
Steve Rogers, Precinct 1. I'm also on the rink committee. I just want to say a couple. You keep hearing rink middle school, rink middle school. I think one of the issues for the rink committee, and I speak as well as the rink community, which I spent 6 years as one of the president, so I kind of speak for them too. Jimmy Lettieri also does. When you hear rink middle school, I can tell you that the rink is separate from the middle school, and the rink is successful. 7 or 8 years ago, it was in kind of a mess, and we started the rink committee, and we worked really hard to turn it around, to move it in the black, and to make it work. The rink committee has plans to make that even more successful, and the issue that keeps coming up with us is, well, we want to throw it into the middle school project. You know, maybe there'll be a new rink. I don't think people understand the astronomical price of a new rink, and also the jeopardy that could be put on in keeping the rink public, which is also another important issue for the people that are involved in the rink committee. It's 100% community used, it's 100% community supported, and it shouldn't come up in a discussion when you're discussing about redoing the middle school. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else wish to be heard? Okay, we'll close up that section. Do we have somebody?
Just One point about the airport. Other metropolitan cities, Chicago has 2 airports to absorb the air traffic there. New York has 3. The volume of the flights is a big concern for the noise and the air quality and the particulate matter that showers down on all of us. So I just want to add that piece to the previous persons and people's comments regarding the airport. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Now you get Julie again.
Josephine Higginbotham from Precinct 5. And since you mentioned the middle school, which I really took an interest in, and I don't know if you've really thought about the safety of the people in our town and keeping our, which should be the most first priority, is the safety about everyone in Winthrop. So I would think we would think of something for our fire department and our police department. And I know at the last meeting, someone asked, have you come up with any idea about where to build a new fire department? And the answer was no. And I think the middle school, we could, you know, we want to put in all these extra buildings, all these extra people. We're not going to be able to handle them with what we have. We had a terrible, terrible fire and explosion. What was it, in Lawrence? It could happen here. We could have a disaster here. And are we prepared for that? Is our town really looking at what we have and how to make it more safe? I just think that that would be an ideal spot. Put a fire and a police station.
Thank you, Mrs. Higginbotham. Anyone else?
Sorry, really quick, I wasn't gonna say anything again, I just, Julia Roller, so I just wanted to respond to Mr. Siotis' comments. It's unfair and inaccurate to say that apartments need to be condos in order to have responsible tenants. I just wanted to clear that rentals can be very responsible people that live there, contribute to the community. And second, I really feel the frustration around congestion and traffic and that we can't add any more people, but are we not wanting to add more people or do we not want to add more cars? Because the two are not the same thing. And I know people think that, you know, we're crazy talking about these trivial bus stops and bike lanes and complete streets, but the reason we're doing this is because we're trying to address congestion and give people options. We can't just keep developing as if one person equals one car, because that's what we're going to get. And I just want to put out there that if you're concerned about congestion and traffic and want to make Winthrop a better place for everyone to live, please support efforts to improve traffic, to improve transportation, to get more people, move more people in fewer vehicles, and even the little things like putting signs on our bus stops and striping them and having some signage or accommodations for people who aren't just driving home can really help us to do that. And I hope that we'll consider that as we hopefully move forward with development.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is a presentation, a water and sewer presentation by Dick Kingston, our town auditor, and our CFO, Anna Friedman.
Hi, how you doing? Thank you, sir.
You're gonna have to test on this?
You're gonna have to turn it over on the back. There's questions.
Thank you.
Where's your water is? No.
Shall I go? Yep. Thanks for having me here. Since fiscal year 19 is closed, I thought it would be a good idea to come down and talk about the results of operations a little bit. I thought it would be particularly important to talk about the water and sewer fund, given the significant rate increase last year. When we were determining the new rate, we had to make some projections on the estimated consumption and usage and the collection rates that were going to happen during the fiscal year. So after we make those estimates, we kind of cross our fingers and hope that, wait till year end to find out if our projections were accurate. So the very top part of this shows of the sheet I gave, it shows the actual revenues for fiscal year 19 and the budget. So it shows that we came in $137,000 over budget. That 137 helps generate free cash in the water and sewer fund, with revenues over the budget and expenditures that come in less than budget. So typically, I would like to see that be a higher number if I was, but given that there's the significant rate increase, I think that this kind of just shows that we really needed the rate increase to get through the fiscal year and to generate some free cash. I estimated, the next part, little section, I said I estimated that the free cash for the fiscal year ended 19 for the water sewer will be about $245,000 to $334,000. And it all depends on how the Department of Division of Local Services looks at a couple of deficits in the accounting issues. And did you have something you want to add?
One of those main deficits is an item that is a motion under new business that would seek to cure that going forward. It's related to a previous project that was charged, it was afforded, the project was originally $1 million. It was something that was required by the state. It came in more than that, but at the time, this was a couple years ago, the funding to meet that overage was budgeted against another project, but those funds have now been spent, are prioritized for the other projects. So that's created a deficit that will likely hit our water sewer free cash. So in order to make sure that doesn't happen again, we've identified a source of funding to clean up that deficit, and so that motion that's under new business would deal with that. Happy to provide any more information that you'd like about that, either tonight or at the next meeting and finance commission.
So the free cash position this year is better than it was last year. Last year you were down, it was certified at $37,000, which is extremely low for a water department to have. You didn't have any wiggle room for any emergency water breaks or things that emergency nature. So the next thing I just wanted to mention is the first billing went out for water for fiscal year 20. And the usage, the gallons billed was down 5.2%. So under item number 3 here, I show what the rate was on the 8/10/18 billing was $19.90, and it was $22.90 for the most recent billing. So the $3 increase was a 15.1% increase. And if you look to the far right on that column, it shows that the billings went up $208,000, or only 9%. So if the rates had stayed, if the usage had stayed the same, the billings would have gone up 15%, the same as the rate increase. So even though the bills went up by $208,000, it was about $130,000 less than projected. I've recently been at a couple of other water districts that I audit, and they had the same problem the first quarter. Their billings were down significantly. And the superintendents of both districts said the same thing, rain. It was a rainy season, and so that's why people didn't need to water their lawns, and so they weren't surprised at the decrease in usage in theirs, and I believe it's the same here. I really don't expect that the next 3 quarters will decrease by that 5.2%, because those are in the periods where usage is arbitrary, and you do have to water it. There is a certain base of usage that people have to use just in normal showering and household. So it's something that we're going to have to watch going forward in the November billings, as we do every year, but I just wanted to keep you guys apprised of where we stood after the first billing. The next little thing I wanted to mention, even if you don't collect as much this year, it won't have a significant impact on your free cash, because the rate was established with the entire borrowing of the Center Business District, as if it was going to be fully borrowed. and the full debt, principal, and interest payment was going to be made in fiscal year '20. And that's not the case. If it's possible that there'll only be some interest payments made, and possibly no interest payments. So the debt related to the Center Business District that has yet to be borrowed would be about $475,000 for fiscal year '20, if it had all been borrowed. So I would expect that you would generate a significant amount of free cash this year, even if this 130 ate into it, but you would still generate a significant amount of free cash this year, even with reduction in usage, because it was built to carry a higher load. The next thing I just wanted to mention is the indirect costs. I think charged to the enterprise funds. I think it's time to visit, particularly the water sewer. I think it's time to revisit those. The previous CFO had a spreadsheet and a lot of calculations on how he got to the indirect cost amount. We can't find them. And so we don't really have support for what makes up the indirect costs. And I think Anna, his intention is to revisit them and to try to build a new model so that we can have better support for what makes up the indirect cost. I do not think that the indirect costs will go up for the enterprise funds. I do not think that's the direction that they'll go. So I think, Deanna, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Just that I agree, and we are in the process of looking through an enhanced financial policies and procedures exercise. And as part of that, we are visiting our indirect costs and working to holistically build those back from the ground up, looking at a previous study that was done a few years ago, a couple CFOs ago. We have information that informs that, and so we want to be able to stand behind every single dollar that is charged to those funds, particularly when they are translated into calculations for rates. So it's something that we're working really diligently on to have in place as we're developing the FY21 budget.
I thought I'd just kind of give you a quick rundown of the other enterprise funds. I've listed them all, and each enterprise fund, the free cash is either substantially the same or a couple had significant increases. The rec had a deficit in the prior year, and it's up to about 33,000 this year, and the waterways went up from 180,000 to 183, and the other two stayed substantially the same. So that's good that each of those free cash did good in each of the enterprise funds. They held their own. The final little topic is the general fund, and I expect a healthy free cash in the general fund of approximately $2.5 million this year. This translates into transfers, according to town policy, into various stabilization funds. So I estimated the free cash at 2.5, and I showed what the current balance is in each of the stabilization funds and what that transfer would be. The increase in free cash was generated by some significant overages in the revenues, and there was about $1.5 million that the revenues did better than their budgets. So that was, I don't believe that that's like a going forward that it's always going to be like that, because there were two big numbers in that caused that from your typical revenue increase, revenues over budget. And one was the in lieu of tax payments. The in lieu of tax payments went up $300,000 during the year. So he had estimated, I think it's 1.6 million, and it came in at 1.9 million because of a change during the year. So that was unbudgeted and caused an increase over budget for 300,000. The other was, it was a very good year for your tax liens. You took in like about $425,000 in tax liens. And those are not common. Sometimes there's some low-hanging fruit on tax liens and you collect them in a year, and sometimes there's a big push, and it's not a constant number that you can just track like that. So that was $700,000 that generated free cash in fiscal year 19. That I know you can't rely on the $300,000 because you budgeted exactly what you expect to get in 2020, and you can't tell on the tax liens. I'm happy to answer any questions. I just wanted to give you a little update.
Councilman Lettieri.
Thank you, Dick, as always, you're tremendous with these numbers, and we really appreciate it. Couple of questions. Quick question on the, going back to, on the enterprise funds, on the, have we received the $150,000 check from the ferry enterprise account from 2019?
Not to date.
Oh, so are these
DEP is
accurate
still-
numbers then, or are these?
Yep, so.
So how did we make up for that 150?
We received an MBTA payment in 19, in June, so that actually counted for 19 instead of 20. So when the DEP money comes in, it will count for 20 instead of 19.
Okay. Going back to the water and sewer bills, so we went up last year substantially.
Yep.
And one of the reasons given was obviously for the funding of the infrastructure down at the center, which didn't take place in lieu of bonding now, has it?
No, that, part of it was because of a great, I mean, usage
Part of it
went
was a
down.
usage,
Yep.
correct, and
Yep.
part of it was to fund
Yes.
infrastructure funds,
Yes.
which didn't end up being taken out.
Right.
So you're saying when those bonds eventually, because I thought, I mean, this is tremendous that you have free cash, and I thought it should have been a little higher, because we didn't do any of the borrowing. Because the borrowing on the first year is gonna be just under $500,000, right? 450.
New borrowing, yeah.
New borrowing.
Yep, new borrowing, yep.
So that's basically
But that's in the.
an increase that we've already allotted for, that we're not even paying yet, so that's what's
Right.
gonna create a
So
free
all,
cash bill.
if all things being equal, I expected that you would just break even with all of it. So
With
if you
the
don't
borrow.
have, in 20, if you don't have that 450, then you should generate $450,000 worth of free cash.
Right.
That 130 puts a crimp in it, because you didn't bill 130 in the first quarter.
Well, you talked about the first quarter. How about the fourth quarter from 19 over the fourth quarter from 18? How was the usage there? Because the rates were still up. Do we have any idea?
I
now?
do have that, but I don't have it with me. I'm glad to get it for
Okay,
you.
yeah, that
I
would be
mean,
great.
are you asking whether the usage?
I'm just saying, you know, you mentioned the first quarter of 20, how the usage went down, and I would like to know the last quarter of 19, because they were still year after year over increased rates versus non-increased rates, how
Right.
the usage
All right,
went.
I'll look at
And
fourth
now I know
quarter.
that when they do their calculation, they do it on, is it a 3-year or a 5-year roll on average? 5-year?
So I have, it depends, what the water and sewer each are a separate sort of assessment
Mhm.
from the MWRA, so if you don't mind, I can even read from directly from the.
Yeah, that's
website and
fine.
Calculate it, just for folks, for everyone's knowledge. Actually, this is last year's, let me find it. Here it is. Okay, water rates, how the MWRA sets its water, directly from its website. In setting water rates, MWRA first identifies through its budgeting process the total amount of revenue that must be raised to run the water system. Charges are calculated using a flat rate per million gallons, $4,021.42 for FY 2020, times the metered water use by a community in the last full calendar year. So water is one year look back, using whatever their rate per million is, and then sewer charges are computed on a proportional allocation basis utilizing total flow, contributing population, and census population for each community. The total amount of required revenue for the sewer system is allocated either to operating costs or capital costs. Operating costs are allocated to each community based on the average of the prior 3 calendar years' total flow, with adjustments for strength of flow. Capital costs, including debt service, are allocated to each community based on a combination of 1, average of the prior 3 years' peak month wastewater flow, and average concentrations of total suspended solids and biochemical oxygen demand, and 2, the proportion of the population of the community that is served by the local sewer system, and 3, the proportion of the community's U.S. Census population to the total census population in the sewer system. So a much more complicated calculation for sewer rates.
So basically, what I'm trying to get to is our assessment should start diminishing slightly, because we've had severe increases over the past several years, and the usage is definitely low.
You know what? One of the, there's all kinds of pieces to that puzzle, and one of the pieces to that puzzle that Anna just showed me fairly recently was that even though your usage went down, let's say 5%, other districts' usage went down more, so your percentage of the MWRAs didn't go down 5%. It went, did it go up 1%?
Of water supplied to the whole metro system, it decreased 5.2% calendar year 19 over calendar year 18. The water supplied for Winthrop decreased 1.1%, but Winthrop's system share increased 4.3%.
So
they have you coming and going, it's.
And so, yeah, and so it's like your percentage of a lot, you know, you have to not only go down in comparison to yourself, you have to go down in comparison to everybody else. And if they're just, their capital and operating, if their budget goes up, then you're just getting, if it goes up more than your.
Right, you're getting a bigger piece of the pie.
So yeah, so you're a piece of their pie no matter what it is. You know, it's like kind of like a regional school district.
Anna?
Yeah, just to add some clarity to that, for example, for water rates for FY19, the charges per million gallons was 3,963. But like I read earlier, for 20, it's 4,2142. So that's just for water. Their costs are increasing there, so advanced usage is going down, the rate per million is going up.
You know, it's kind of like places that have regional schools, they have the same thing. They say, well, I had 100 students in there and there were 200 students, and this year I only have 90. I should get less, but the other school has 80, you know, so it's like you're getting a higher percentage even though you have, so.
That's one good line that we've been doing pretty well on. Though.
Yes,
but my last question is on the stabilization funds and over on the whole. It's great to hear that free cash is going to be heavier than I would have assumed.
Yeah.
It's a little discouraging to see that I mean, it's a lot of money, $3 million, but it's discouraging to see in the percentage of our budget that it's down substantially from where we were a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And I'm very happy to see that build up, and I think there's policy questions that we should address because there's still going to be a good amount of additional money, and I don't think we should just waste that money. You know,
I agree. I mean, if you would ask me what you should do with your free cash, I would say nothing.
Right.
You should try to build up reserves.
Well, it just helps us so much with bond ratings and everything else.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we were able to save an awful lot of money on the new school project because of those reserves, and now they've diminished this year pretty substantially. So, again, thank you so much. You're so good at what you do.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Dick.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you.
The audience over there ask a question.
Okay, the Airport Hazards Committee is going to do a presentation. Thank you.
The gang's all here.
Gina, could you introduce everyone, please?
That guy
Welcome back. Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Is he,
I'm from Winthrop.
So I'm Gina Cassetta. I'm the chair of the Winthrop Airport Hazards Committee. This is Jerry Felbo, who is the vice chair. We have several members of the committee here this evening. We have Linda Cargill, Tino Capobianco, Dawn Quirk, somewhere in here, but I just wanted to thank the committee for having us here this evening to discuss what is happening with the airport lately and the overflights that are affecting even more parts of town than just Point Shirley at this point. We were hoping to make recommendations to the council on what we feel, based on our research, should try to help mitigate some of the overflights and the noise. The decibel levels are really off the charts. We recently met with Senator Boncory, we met with Speaker DeLeo, we met with Congresswoman Clark's office. We have tried to meet with as many people as we can to get help with regards to soundproofing at a minimum for homes that haven't been soundproofed in 30 years. There's a passenger facility charges that could be used. The MCAC committee, which Jerry Felbo is the vice chairman of, raised those issues with the general counsel of the MCAC committee, and it took quite a while for Massport to give even her a response back. I'm not sure even if that's been resolved at this point yet. It's still kind of in limbo.
There's been a response, but we're looking into that response. We don't agree.
So and then where Winthrop stands above every other community are in the DNL levels. As far as what the FAA deems uninhabitable are levels over 65 DNL. 65 DNL doesn't mean 65 decibels. That could mean 120 decibels for 8 straight hours, and say the remaining 12 hours, they switched flight configurations, and now they're not taking off over Point Shirley. So all those zeros get factored in. 120 decibels, listening to that for 8 straight hours, every minute, is just not okay. It's just not. Windows are failing, seals are broken, frames are broken. We ask the council to guide us and give us some advice as to where to go next. I feel like we've exhausted every avenue imaginable, including meeting with Massport at the Logan Airport office months ago. And as far as they're concerned, they've given us mitigation money. And they say, it is up to your town to help you. In my opinion, that mitigation money kind of got a little tricky. It seems to me that they promised X amount of dollars for the Winthrop Foundation, for Miller Field, or whatever the case was. Then all of a sudden, the pilot was renegotiated, and it seemed to me that they kind of tried to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone and had the town accept the mitigation money, because we had probably already earmarked that money for other expenses, which is not okay, in my opinion. I think it's a little shady's a good word. But as far as the increase in departures over the last several years, with that comes noise. So in 2017, just off runway 9 alone, which crosses Point Shirley, Euro Beach, the altitudes have dropped significantly. I was a resident for 20 years on Whittier Street, and never in my life until 2 years ago did I start making complaints where I would call. Like, that's what got me so passionate to get involved in this committee. People are suffering. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. 50,000 departures over the same stretch of houses in a year. 50,000. It's just, we stand alone. We stand above every other community as far as noise, as far as residents being affected. There's reports from as late as 2015, that's their most recent, where we saw a 300% increase in residents being exposed to 70 to 75 DNL. Even East Boston's only at 110. Winthrop's at 320 as of 2015. I'm so curious to see what 2016 through present time shows, but unfortunately wait X amount of years for these reports to come out. So they're going off of census data that's probably from 2010. It's very stale. And not only that, Winthrop is pretty much confined to increasing our population due to Logan Airport. We can't build, we can't go over 37 feet, or how are we gonna increase our population? So that's what they justify, flying over communities with the least amount of people. Well, that doesn't mean that we don't matter, in my opinion, and I'm sure many other residents feel the same way. For them to give us a mitigation package of essentially $900,000 over 7 years, in addition to the pilot, based on false information, I believe that they underestimated what the traffic was supposed to be. We surpassed it in 2015, let's put it that way. So what they generated, what their anticipated growth would be in 2015 in the ESPR that was just published, we've already well surpassed that in 2015. So for them to come to us and say, hey, we feel like this is a fair offer, it's not fair, because it's fictitious data. It's wrong. So I wouldn't like to turn it over to Jerry at this point, but I appreciate you taking time to hear our concerns, and the DNL levels are a significant issue because at this point, Point Shirley is literally 1 point away from being uninhabitable. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's uninhabitable, especially people without soundproofing. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. President, Councilman, and people from Point Shirley and all those interested in their problems, I want to thank you for having us here tonight. We have been lucky in the last 3-4 months, well, actually it's the last year, by getting hardworking individuals like Gina and Linda and new members of our committee.
Dawn.
And Donna. They have worked very hard. It's very simple, gentlemen. Point Shirley is going down the tubes. I already know of one person who sold. We have contacted every legislative leader, including Massport. It is our opinion now that it has to fall in your laps. However you may want to do it. Now, we looked over the problem and we said, all right, how can we help the people of Point Shirley who has suffered? And we decided this. The tremendous increase of overflights in the past 2 years are unbearable. And I don't know how we're going to stop the overflights. The expansion or the modernization of Terminal E, again, another draw of more planes. And the 5,000 parking spaces or parking garage. So it appears that from our attempting to stop those items such as flights and parking that are causing noise is at the moment unattainable. We come up with something, soundproof. Now if we could get funds for soundproofing, that would help neutralize the additional flights that are coming over. Now, Massport has 2 programs. One is called the Airport Improvement Program, or the AIP. The other is called the Passenger Facility Charge, or the PFC. Now, I'm going to disregard the AIP because we didn't bother it. It is very stringent. It is totally controlled by the FAA. And in some cases, if there are competing airports, it becomes a lottery. But what we did look into is the BIP, and that's the Passenger Facility Charge, PFC, excuse me. That every passenger who flies is charged with that. Massport does not have to come up with a program that is noise compatible, right? The one that I don't want to talk about. Massport can exercise its own discretion as to what noise projects it's going to deal with. Subject, of course, to the FAA approval saying, hey, is this going to mitigate noise? That's basically what it is. We, as of Thursday, we have been denied that by a very fancy letter that required a dictionary in order to translate it. We are still working on it. I might add at this time that the reason we got Massport to even move in that direction was as vice chairman of the Massport CAC, which involves 34 cities and towns. I was able to get that on the agenda and get them to push it. As a result, the CAC Council negotiated back and forth with the Massport Council, and we got a rejection. As I look at this council, I think back that I have been doing the same thing between selectmen and counseling since 1972. Many of you weren't even born by then. But
beside you.
be quiet, you. But let me be very clear, and I'm saying that on behalf of all of Point Shirley. Something has to be done. And you've got to do it, and you don't have much time. The other thing is this. I don't think Point Shirley cares how you come up with the funding, whether it's through the PFC program or whether it becomes a line item in the budget. That's up to you, gentlemen, to decide what you're going to do with it. I have one final remark. I was reminded of it today. There has been talk going around during the last couple of months. Is our committee, the AHC, is it advisory or is it standard? Gentlemen, ladies, I agree, it's advisory. Now, over the 45 or 48 years that I've been involved, my perception has been our committee approaches Massport and the FAA, find out what's happening. So we then can report and advise. The early days, the Board of Selectmen, this day the Council. Gentlemen, sad to say, no one on the negotiating team that negotiated the mitigation program, the pilot program, and Winthrop Foundation, contacted anyone for any type of advice. That doesn't mean to say we know everything, but we could help, and particularly in the negotiation, because of the information we have, that we've learned concerning East Boston. The way I look at it now is if we don't get the help that we are seeking in one form or another, and since our advice is not sought, and the question becomes, what good are we? Should we continue to exist? Finally, and I think I've said enough, you must help the people of Point Shirley. I think it's your duty, your responsibility, obligation. Call it anything you want. Thank you.
Questions from the councilors?
Hey, Jerry, as you know, I've been on your side since 1972.
No question about it.
Okay.
And I'm going to get after you in the next year.
Thank you. What do we need to do right now? You gave us two options, PFC and line item budget. Are you talking about a town line item budget to pay for this?
Yes.
Or are you talking about
Two separate.
forcing Logan Airport to put it in their budget?
Well, if you can do that, that's fine too. I wouldn't object to it.
Okay, but I mean,
I wasn't talking about that.
You're talking
I was
about
talking
what?
about the PFC program or alternately a line item in the budget.
Whatever the money is.
He does, I don't think he
No,
cares where the money comes from as long as we get it.
By the way, we were told by the FAA that the average cost soundproof a house is 50 grand. That's the average.
Average.
Go ahead.
Okay. But they also told you in that letter of rejection, because I read the letter as well, that they can't do houses that were already done in the past
That's ridiculous.
30 years ago, which is ridiculous, because they put the faulty windows in that are now falling out, they should be responsible for. But, you want to answer that? But
Well, I know,
Go
let
ahead,
me
Jerry,
answer,
and then
you
I'll-
know why?
I'll
Because the
follow up.
FAA was there Thursday.
Okay.
okay.
It was told to me on Thursday by a representative of the FAA that about a year and a half ago, a congressional delegation approached the FAA about changing the rule on resoundproofing. The position of the FAA was, well, we'll study it, but we believe that those windows still perform in the same manner as they were intended. Well, that's why it's wide open.
Obviously not, because I know we've changed 3 windows already, we had to, because they fell out, but
Exactly.
they're not working.
Yeah, I just want to add about the flexibility of the passenger facility charges. As far as the FAA is concerned and Massport's concerned, this line of one and done for the lifetime of the home, I've been trying for almost 1 solid year for Massport to provide to me what law says that? Is it a federal law? Is it a state law? Is it an agency law? Is it an opinion of Massport?
Well, but it came, I thought it was an opinion in the FAA's rules.
But it's not. It's an opinion of Massport, as far as Massport has an obligation to speak on behalf of any neighboring community which sees an increase in noise. When I say an increase, I mean by 5 decibels is considered by the FAA considerable increase. Point Shirley now is at a 73.9 DNL. With that level comes all sorts of trouble for new construction. There's guidelines that need to be followed. There has to be X amount of things that need to be soundproofed and whatever, things of that nature. But as far as the passenger facility charges are concerned, Massport can make a recommendation to the FAA and say, listen, the noise levels on Point Shirley have tripled in the last 3 years. The overflights have tripled in the last 3 years. The altitudes are significantly lower. We can use, it says 50% of all passenger facility funds, charge funds, spent on noise reduction or mitigation have been used, usually, ready for this, to acquire land. In my opinion, I feel that if Massport pushes to use passenger facility charges, what that's going to result in is the buy-up of Point Shirley. And I'm not even kidding. That's how serious this is.
When I called to complain about the noise, and I said, you know, I'd sell my house if I could, and the gentleman said, oh, would you be interested in selling your house? I'd have my supervisor call you. Yeah.
That's what they did to Wood Island Park in Roaring Heights and East Boston.
Yeah,
But
but it's,
Go ahead.
okay, but it's to the point now where it's unavoidable. You can't really hide it any longer because the sound is so drastic. It's really, it's debilitating.
Something, I was actually a member of
Wait,
the
wait,
Alder
okay.
Airport.
it's not public comment.
Oh, it's not public comment. Oh, okay.
One other thing, we know that Congressman Clark put that bill in to do a study. When is this study going to be done? I mean, do we have any idea what the study is of and when it's going to be done and how much input we can have into that study?
That I don't know. I know that there was a study conducted in 2012 in which I know personally the family who participated in it, and they actually live on Grandview. And MIT was hired on behalf of Massport and the FAA, and millions of dollars were spent. They went into certain homes who volunteered, and they came up with the conclusion that, oh, yep, they're working as they should. That was in 2012, and if you saw this house that I'm speaking of, the windows literally are about to fall out.
To try to answer your question, I believe it was in 2015 or 2016, the senator on Corey, plus Clark, there was one other person.
Congressman Lynch.
Lynch was it?
Yeah, Steve Lynch.
Right. Enacted a bill that never got off the ground. And do you remember what the bill was?
Was it for soundproofing?
It was a federal bill.
It wasn't.
But it ended up just being a study. And we wanted to know, I don't know if we have any input for this study.
All right, since I don't really remember, I'm not gonna argue, but I thought it was more than a study, but, and the study that I referred to a few moments ago is a farce. It's the FAA convinced the congressional group that went to see them that let's see the results of the study on these windows. I have an idea. I don't know who's going to accept it, but I submit that it might be in order for the council to appoint, or whoever, a subcommittee to do a little bit more studying on it and possibly come up with some decisions. Because otherwise, where's this going?
Who said economic development, because it all depends on economics, doesn't it?
Public safety. Could refer it to Public Safety Committee, the council.
Refer to the public safety?
Council.
If I may, just a question, suggestion.
These are members of the committee, by the way.
Councilor Farino attended a number of our meetings. I know Councilor Christopher has as well. In the past, we've had a liaison to our committee. We haven't had an official liaison as of late. I think that's something that the committee would find helpful. President Becky, if you'd like to appoint someone, or in the future, I guess, incoming President Boncory, that's something I think that we'd love to have a liaison to the subcommittee.
Yes, and thank you very much, and I didn't mean to slight you, but you've been a tremendous help since you came aboard. And I had so many other things. I don't understand it. You want to refer this to the Public Safety Committee.
Of the council, of the council.
Oh.
So we have a committee, a subcommittee of the council. That's about as direct you can get into the council, is that they could work in conjunction with your committee. Okay?
That's fine.
Any other comments? Councilor Christopher?
I want to thank you guys for your work, and it really, I've sensed like a refurbished group, and there's so much energy there, and I think that we can really move with this. But it sounds to me like what we have is an issue of an interpretation of a federal regulation, and I know that Congress people tend to have a lot of input in how that goes, and I know that Congressman Lynch has been really active on this issue down on the South Shore, and maybe it would be a good idea if we got a couple members of the congressional delegation in Massachusetts whose communities are dealing with this, ours included. I know she would be supportive, as well as the Boston congressperson as well, and send a letter to the FAA to ask for a differing opinion about how that federal regulation should be interpreted. I think that would be a really great way to sort of get everybody connected on that.
Councilman Christopher, I agree with what you said. And as a practical matter, more pragmatic, Massport should go and fight with the FAA. That'd be the end of the ballgame. And again, we've talked to all of these legislative representatives. And of course, tonight we're talking to you. However it's done, pressure on Massport,
Yeah.
but I don't disagree with you. I mean,
Yeah, and I don't think it has to be limited to Massachusetts either. There are communities across the country who are having conversations just like we're having tonight, in every state in the country. This is something that it really affects so many people. And we can get their Congress people on board too, because I'm sure they're talking about soundproofing as well.
Anyone else? Any other councils wish to be
I
heard?
have one question.
Linda?
So I just have one question. We talked a lot about the soundproofing, and the noise. Is there any updates on any of the health issues?
We've brought our concerns to the Board of Health. They were very receptive in our plea and actually did some research themselves. Worked with Dr. Wines and myself, and we managed to we got 2 years worth of noise data, and then it was analyzed professionally. And we've come to the conclusion that these noise levels are so high, where if Dr. Wines is here,
Sure.
I believe it was something with the hairs and ears.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about that. My name is Astrid Lines, I'm on the Board of Health, I'm the Vice Chair. We've done some research on that, and so just to give you some average monthly noise levels that we're dealing with, this is from the noise monitor that Massport implemented on Point Shirley, and they're ranging from 72.5 to 75.1 on average. So DNL means day and nighttime average noise levels, as Gina explained. They even included 10 decibel nighttime penalty for each measured noise event, and they're being matched up with planes that are flying over, so they're not measuring other noise that's happening, for example, the Winthrop fireworks or something like that. So just to give you some perspective, the Winthrop fireworks clocked in about 110 decibels, okay? And the highest airplane noise is almost the same. So if you imagine Winthrop fireworks going off every minute, every 30 seconds above you, that's basically what some people are experiencing sometimes every day, and some days of the week, sometimes a week at a time or even more. And that is really not healthy. And we know that everything above 65 is considered an annoyance. And I don't mean annoyance as, oh, I'm annoyed by this. Annoyance means it has an effect on your daily life and your daily activities, meaning your sleep and your conversations and the way you are conducting your life. Are you indoors? Are you outdoors? The way you learn in schools, kids are really affected by this. They have much better hearing than adults. So that is something that really you should take into consideration. And then it affects, it's shown by studies by Mass General, for example, has issued a big study just last year about the effects of noise on cardiovascular health. People have hypertension from it because they don't sleep well. They have sleep, deprivation issues. Kids don't study as well. Kids have, learning disabilities and concentration problems, focusing problems, ADHD, things like that. All of this has been linked to noise. And this is just noise that we're talking about. We're not even talking about the air pollution aspect of the whole thing, right? That, in addition to the noise, is a significant public health threat. And I can't believe, and I'm just saying this as an opinion also because I'm a resident here, but if I hear someone, and I heard someone from Massport say, oh, if we use this runway 9, which goes up above the point, then we just fly out over the water. And I could not believe that comment. They're not flying out over the water, they're flying over our town. And it's a limited population, and that's why they're not paying a lot of attention to us. They're paying attention to other communities that have higher populations. They have population numbers in the 100,000s.
We're a small number of people that are severely affected, but we're so severely affected that we should have a lot more input than these other communities. And we should really, really advocate. And I think I'm asking you, I'm urging you as a public health official in this town, but also as a doctor, as a resident, as a mother, that you need to do something. You need to speak up for your residents because this is not sustainable for people there. And you have 65 decibel noise levels. That's nothing for the point, you know? And that's supposed to be the limit for soundproofing. And the soundproofing, as we've heard, has failed in most people's houses by now. That's crazy. So we need to speak up. We need to put Winthrop back on the map. You know, they're not thinking about us. I went to the Massport board meeting a few weeks ago, and my only point that I made was we exist. I had 3 minutes to speak. It was a public comment. I submitted my statement to the town manager and also to the town council president. It was a 3-minute statement. My only reason to talk was, hey, we're here. They have a big conference room at the top level of their building. They look out on the beautiful skyline of Boston, but the other side has no windows. And I said, well, if you had windows here, you would see Winthrop. And we're actually really close to you. And I think you need to, it's time for you to also take a stand and advocate for your citizens, for your residents, because this is getting worse.
Our congressional delegation had sent a letter to the FAA regarding soundproofing. My understanding is that either the president or the council got copies of that. Am I right?
Yeah, we sent a letter to Congresswoman Clark, I believe Senator Warren and Senator
in April and May.
Yeah, April and May, we CC'd the council as well as, I believe the president and
Yeah, you're right.
Commander and Speaker DeLeo and Senator Montgomery back in April and May.
Any further questions or comments from the council?
I'm sorry, one more question. In 2015, they did a health study about all this, and they found 2 things, especially in children, incidences of COPD and childhood asthma. And this was a state study, so it was something that they really paid attention to. Are we aware of any efforts that they've made to mitigate any of those
Like air filters
diseases
or things of that
anything like
nature?
Are you talking about the Department of Public Health?
Yeah, the Department of Public, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That study was initiated by a group in Winthrop that the selectmen backed at the time, and Brian Dumpster passed away, but it was not followed up on.
Don't forget that it was 10 years. So what was?
There's also the East
Don?
Boston Neighborhood Health Center study that said this asthma program for kids, that's only really, I don't think how many Winthrop kids are in there. I asked them once how many Winthrop kids are in this program. It's mostly East Boston neighborhood, East Boston kids. And it's only for patients of the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center. So it does not apply to the majority of residents in this town. And I don't even believe more than 2 or 3 kids are part of that study. So I'm very concerned that we're not getting any kind of significant health effects mitigation here. Financial mitigation, I can't speak for that. But I do think that we need to start thinking about our residents' health, and that's what I'm here for. And I'm happy to provide you data you want to see, everything, information that I've collected. But I'm concerned about the health of my children and everybody else's children, and also everybody else living in this town.
Dawn, do you want to say something?
I did. I just said 2 things. Councilor Calla, I wanted to add that if you, soundproofing also protects the air. So all these windows that are failing, if there are cracks in them, it's not keeping out the pollution. So that's a secondary reason to get soundproofing updated. And then secondly, just about the East Boston Health Center, I had done some research on that. And if a Winthrop person, a young person, is a member of the clinic, they can go and get these free services for asthma, but they have to go to East Boston. And to me, I think it's just an easy ask to say, why don't you have your asthma specialist travel once a week to the Winthrop site, because it's the same clinic. So, Winthrop may take more advantage of it if there was a local person there. So I would ask that, hey, give them a suitcase and go there for a day.
That's easy.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question, and I thank you guys, because it's been an incredible conversation, but I don't want it to die here, and then you go away, and then nobody talks about it again for another, until you guys come back in 3 months or 4 months. We obviously have mitigation packages with Massport, and is there what is our step? What can, I mean, we could send it to a committee and do this and do that. It's not, you know, I feel like that's not gonna go far. Is there something we can do in terms of getting a meeting with Massport, reopen mitigation talks, look at medical effects on it, not just, I mean, financial ramifications are great, but are there other things we can do? Are we locked in? Do we have other things we can do? Can we involve the Airport Hazards Committee a little more, because they are the experts? We go to the planning board when we try to get issues on zoning, we go to the Board of Appeals when we try to get issues on zoning, we go to the Department of Health when we try to get issues on health. Why can't we have these experts that have been here for, some of them for an awful long time? Why can't we use these people more and try to get a meeting with Massport instead of just listening and venting and everybody gets agitated, then we leave and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's forgotten, but it's kind of put on the back burner until it comes up again. And I think it's time we try to act, and I don't know through the town manager what we can do to try to get this done.
So this is stuff that was signed on to by the town, the mitigation package. This is stuff that I believe you and I signed on, the mitigation package. So there's a new CEO. We can try to invite her to town to meet with us and have these discussions. I'm not opposed to that at all.
Well, can I ask then through the president for us to ask for you to try to get communication with the new CEO?
I'm already trying to set up a meeting with her. So, yeah.
And please make sure that we have the Airport Hazards at a meeting if we have them invited. Thank you very much.
She should know now about us, because
she's well aware of you. I'll say that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. No correspondence. Meeting right now. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Okay, the council is back in session. The next item on the agenda is committee reports, rules and ordinances. Do you want to wait until we come up with
I'll give the committee report, then I'll bring up the motions on the old business. I think we're under old business on the agenda.
Correct.
Okay, Rules and Ordinance Committee met on October 8th of 2019 at 6:33. The meeting was called here in this room. Present were myself as chairman, Councilor Conti and Councilor Farino. Also present were Councilors Lettieri, Councilors Christopher, and our Assistant Town Manager, Dave Rodriguez. We had quite a big attendance, about the same amount of people that are in the room right now, maybe a little bit more. And everyone, we listened to 15 to 20 speakers. Then under discussion, our issue was to look at the map and the advice of the planning board and the map that they gave us, which I know there are plenty of them around here, and to bring that map with its recommendations and our recommendations to the council for a full vote to identify the Center Business District. We took the map at the planning board, and there were certain changes that we made in it, and one was to add parts of Madison Street, and that was because the people that lived there spoke and asked to be included. Other parts were to remove parts of Winthrop Street because the people that lived in those houses were there and wanted to be removed. People that wanted to be removed from Fremont Street were removed, and Beryl Terrace was removed, and then there was a motion to add the middle school auditorium, gymnasium, and rink. And all of those motions were carried either unanimously or 2-1. And then a motion was adopted to accept the planning board's proposed map as amended by the 3 votes that we're going to take up under old business. Meeting adjourned at 8:04. There were many handouts that were given out during the meeting, maps and petitions and so on, and they were all turned in as part of the minutes of that meeting.
Okay. Precinct 2, neighborhood meeting?
Precinct 2 had a neighborhood meeting October 7th from 6, started at 6 o'clock in the Lyceum Room. There was much discussion, but the main focus of discussion focused around same items we seem to be talking about a lot. Center Business District, middle school and Ingleside Park drainage, along with Morton Street drainage. There's many issues brought up, many discussions back and forth, different alternatives to use as far as the middle school, thoughts on, or questions about the infrastructure project in the center, when it was beginning, when it was ending. So the conversation was pretty good, and the meeting ended at 7:45.
Miller Field.
Miller Field met also on October 7th. Progress on the field house seems very, very good. Drywall is 40% done. HVAC units were installed, all electrical finished in the concession. Lights were installed underneath the overhang over the concession. Still need some windows and ongoing work in the locker room areas. We feel that the VOC has done a tremendous job, and this year in particular, I think they have some new leadership there and are very gung-ho and have been incredibly diligent in their work, and it's really showing. Progress is coming much quicker than it has been in the past, and we're pretty excited about everything. There's also discussion about extending the contract for Gilbane out till January, because one of the questions that was brought up was the tennis courts, under the town manager and the council president's suggestion. So we did there was discussion about the tennis courts, and we have asked to put out an RFP for potential cost of refurbishing the tennis courts. We also, again, look diligently for the golf course to try to come to a meeting. We were hoping they would be at that last meeting, but there might have been some miscommunication, because we want some direction as to a shed and possible sites and possible size that they're looking at, so we can look at that in terms of our financing. But we think that that's something that could be done. So we hope to have them at our next meeting. And that is it. Okay, thank you.
Town manager's report?
Sure, just one thing with that. I'm still looking for the information on the shed as well, unfortunately. We have been presented with an image of a potential shed, maintenance facility type of thing, but we're still pressing for additional information of what we specifically need in that building, and what's required for the operation of the golf course. So we've been in contact with golf course leadership.
We're really looking for square footage.
Yep.
For, we would have to put down a foundation, we would have to put down a building, and we did put one on the Miller Field site in the back. And, if it's something like that, we know where we're going.
Yep.
We've done it before, we can do it, we can price it out, but we're just trying to get more specific.
Same. I'm trying to get it for you as hard as possible. So, kind of tangential to that, an update on the dog park. There's been a title search and preliminary proposal for the preferred site on Kennedy Drive. The title search was inconclusive, but we believe that there are no title restrictions. The engineering proposal identified the site as being in an area of critical environmental concern, meaning the regulatory requirements of building on the site would be significant. Proposal received was for $128,300, and that site includes survey, environmental design, and permitting, no hard construction costs. So that would be going into that site. So my office has been working pretty hard to determine an alternative site. Dave Rodriguez, the town manager, has been taking point on that. And we're still in preliminary discussions. We're trying to find a site, and we want to find a site for a dog park. We realize there's a public request for it and public clamor for it, and we're trying to kind of appease these concerns. So We are, there's a grant that has been identified by the group in favor of the dog park that the town would have to contribute at least 10% of hard construction costs with cash, not in kind labor. The town would have to apply for this grant. There are limitations to what may be able to apply to the construction of a park, and we are continually looking for internal funding opportunities for the park in addition to the grant. And we are not sure if the grant would be able to cover any of the initial proposed work for the Kennedy Drive site in terms of the environmental work and design and permitting. So that's where we stand right now, but we are we continue to look for sites, and this is stuff that is important to my office, and we are in explorations of sites, but they're really, really preliminary right now, and we hope to provide an update to the community once we can kind of get some movement on one of the sites. But hopefully that is something that we can all be happy for to enjoy at some point during, I would say, calendar 2020. I have Northeastern graduate students, a group of capstone students, which is like their final project in their graduate program for public administration and resiliency or something like that. They're going to work with my office and DPW concerning the onboarding of C-Click Fix, which is a work order management system that our DPW department is going to be using. So we're excited to have C-Click Fix on board. Director Calla has been hard at work already talking to them. What these students are going to do, they're going to focus on best practices and potential metrics and how this inputs into the budget. C-Click Fix was actually acquired by Civic Plus last week, and Civic Plus runs our website. So hopefully we can have a nice seamless integration of giving constituents the ability to submit work orders through there and request work, but also for people to be able to see how DPW is doing and how and be able to report out more frequently to the public. DPW is taking the lead on the implementation, so Director Calla has been doing a good job with this, and he will continue to do that. And we look forward to these students kind of learning by helping Steve out and working with OpenGov and C-Click Fix. So with that said, the town's website has been updated by Civic Plus last week. It got a nice refresh. It looks a little more modern. It works a little bit quicker. We're going to continue improving the site through kind of systematically killing out dead links and cleaning out some of the information in there. I know the project plans and documents, part of it is a lot of project plans and documents, and we can organize that better. So we're then going to figure out how we're organizing the site a little bit better. But what I really want to do is all of these web-based platforms that we're using for different departments that we've been bringing on board is having those more prominently displayed in the departments so people have better ways to interact with the departments, again, on a 24/7 basis. Lastly, there's going to be a press release concerning the marijuana ballot question. Just Karen Chavez has been asking for it frequently, and some other members of the community. Just to reiterate, a yes vote is in favor of a ban. You want to ban if you're voting yes. So yes for ban, no in support of having marijuana. I know it may be confusing, but the yes vote means ban. Yes for ban. Just think of it that way. I'm not campaigning or anything, but that's an easy sign that I think anyone can kind of wrap their head around. So there will be a press release about it, but this is something that we are trying very hard to be transparent with the community because we do not want people confused about this. This has been clear since I think we did that marijuana forum last fall. I think it was in my first 2 or 3 weeks on the job here. So I know that this has been a long process, and now we're very close to voting on this. So I just want to make sure we're not going to meet again until this happens. So just everyone who's watching, yes for ban. That's what you need to remember for a simple point of clarity. Otherwise, that is all that I have. Sure.
Just to piggyback on that, yes to ban an establishment, a retail establishment.
No.
Not to ban.
No, it's not. Well,
No,
we
I
can't.
understand.
Yeah,
I
we
understand.
can't do well.
No, but I'm just saying, just so everybody's clear what we're voting on,
Sure.
right? Okay.
The question is, shall the town ban marijuana establishment, including cafes, deliveries, so on and so forth, all the way down?
I'm just trying to make sure that the public doesn't think we're trying to ban the law that was passed by the state on the usage or the legality of it.
No, we
Right.
can't.
I just want to make it clear. And just one question, you mentioned DPW Director Calla, who I think is doing an incredible job, but can you ask him, I did have a brief discussion with him on Revere Street, near the Fort Bank School. There's a couple of, what are they, like solar sensing crossing signs?
Yeah.
And I think it would be fantastic to try to do one on Walden Street between Ingleside and the tennis courts. Same thing, going to school, kids going to school, going across the park. You know, I think it would be very wisely used there, as it has been. It seems to be doing pretty well. I know I've heard of all kinds of issues on Revere Street coming and going in the morning. But I think at Ingleside Park, if we could put a similar sign, if at all possible.
I can look into that. I
Solar.
think the only issue with that is I think those signs were gifted to us from another entity, but let me just look into that.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
So if we could just ask that,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Old business, the CBD zoning map amendment. Councilman Corey.
Here is the motion that came out of committee. And that is a motion to accept the planning board's proposed map as amended by these following motions. That was a unanimous vote by the council. The amendments. Amendment number 1 was a motion by Councilor Conti. Nope, that wasn't number 1. Motion by Richard Farino to remove 15 and 16 Fremont Street and number 1, 2, and 5 Burrell Terrace from the Center Business District. That was seconded by Councilor Conti. It was a 2-to-1 approval with Councilor Farino Boncory voting yes and Councilor Conti voting no. The second amendment, it's a motion by Councilor Farino to remove 211 and 207 Winthrop Street from the Center Business District proposed map of the planning board. And that was again a 2-to-1 vote with Councilors Farino and Boncory voting yes and Councilor Conti voting no. The third motion was by Councilor Conti to add 20 and 30 Madison Avenue to the Center Business District, was seconded by Councilor Farino, and that was unanimous. And the final motion was by Councilor Conti to add numbers 141 through 151 Pauline Street to the Center Business District. 141, 151 Pauline Street include the middle school, auditorium, gymnasium, and rec.
Okay, we have 4 amendments.
4 amendments.
Is it better to take them separately?
Yes, we can
So
take them
let's take
separately.
the first one. Would you read the first?
All right. The main motion, though, is to accept the motion, the planning board's proposed map as amended, okay? Now, the first amendment is, well, let's do it this way. To add 20 and 30 Madison Ave to the Center Business District. And people that live there on Madison Ave came to the council meeting, they came to the planning board, they've come to 3 meetings asking to be included, so we thought they should be included.
Any discussion on the amendment?
I think, again, it's important to realize that the owners were there and present. They were very supportive of it. They had talked to the neighbors, I believe, on the street, who were also supportive of it, and I think it's very well worthwhile.
I haven't heard anybody say anything negative about them being included whatsoever.
Okay. Any further discussion on the
Just
first
wanted to
amendment?
make a clarification. So we included the Burrell.
Yeah,
Okay.
Burrell Terrace, it was number 1, 2, 5.
No, we didn't get to that one.
We didn't do that.
Yes. Oh, that's, we're still on the first one, we're still on Madison,
Okay, any further discussion on the First Amendment,
which is Madison Avenue.
which is Madison Avenue? Can we vote on that separately, or do we have to
Yeah,
do
we
it all
can
together?
vote on that one
Okay.
separately. and-
No further discussion? Do we have to do a roll call on this, because it's a zoning?
We should.
Okay.
Counselor Ingman. Counselor Callow.
Yes.
Counselor Christopher.
Yes.
Counselor Boncory.
Yes.
Counselor DeMarco.
Yes.
Counselor Farino.
Yes.
Counselor Conti.
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri.
Yes.
President Vecchia.
Yes.
Amendment passes.
Okay, amendment passes. Amendment number 2.
Amendment number 2 is to remove 15 and 16 Fremont Street, and number 1, 2, and 5 Beryl Terrace from the Center Business District.
Any discussion
And
on?
the person that lived at 15 Fremont Street was at the meeting, came, asked to be removed. There was a question about them at the planning board's meeting, when we had the full meeting between the two bodies, and that person that owns that property came and talked about herself, 16 and Beryl Street.
Okay, how about any feedback on the other three? On Beryl?
No, we looked at those.
Okay.
They,
Any questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call.
Counselor Ringman. Counselor Calla.
Yes.
Counselor Christopher.
Yes.
Counselor Boncory.
yes.
Counselor DeMarco.
Yes.
Counselor Farino.
Yes.
Counselor Conti.
No.
Vice President Lettieri.
Yes.
President Vecchia.
Yes.
Amendment passes.
Amendment number 3.
Amendment number 3 was a motion to remove 211 and 207 Winthrop Street from the Center Business District. The young lady that owns 211 Winthrop Street appeared at the meeting that we had, and she, I guess, did not appear at the meeting prior to it that the planning board had, but she appeared at our meeting, and she does not want to be included in the Center Business District. If you recall on the map, she's the house right next to the church. And you can point that right out. John is pointing there right now. Those two houses,
So,
211 and,
I know the public comment is over. Those are still included. They're still
Yeah.
purple on this.
I understand.
Are you gonna fix that?
We're gonna fix that. That's why I'm making the motion now to remove them. And what happened is that went to print the night after my meeting. David Rodriguez, the assistant town manager, put it into print, and he left those two in by accident. And that they were circled on, and all the council's maps. They got information today from the council clerk, and it showed those two areas being circled out. They will be circled out before it's submitted to the whole town.
Great.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any further discussion?
And just for
Councilor
confirmation,
Terry.
those are two residences.
Those are two residents, 211 and 207. And they are like single, two-family residences.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call.
Counselor Ingman. Counselor Calla.
Yes.
Counselor Christopher.
Yes.
Counselor Boncory.
Yes.
Counselor DeMarco.
Yes.
Counselor Farino.
Yes.
Counselor Conti.
No.
Vice President Lettieri.
Yes.
President Vecchia.
Yes.
Amendment passes.
Amendment number 4.
And amendment number 4 is a motion to add the middle school auditorium, gymnasium, and rink, which would be numbers 141 through 141 through 151 Pauline Street to the Center Business District map.
Any discussion on the motion?
I have a
Counsel?
question on the motion.
Councilor Calla?
You want me to do the explanation why we came out of committee?
Certainly.
All right, it came out of committee to add that with a 2-to-1 vote. And the main reason we were pushing to add that is that the middle school project has been sitting there for 4 years or more with nothing at all being done, which many people have talked about. David Rodriguez, who was our assistant town manager, said that unless that was included and we had some zoning, we couldn't put out an RFP and get someone interested in coming in here and developing this project. It's been sitting there too long, so 2 of the members of my committee felt it absolutely should be included, and let's get some process started to move this middle school out of the dead hole that it's in, or the black hole that it's in. Okay? That was the reasoning for the 2 people that voted for it.
Okay.
Councilor Calla?
Well, I mean, the council had voted to keep the rink out of that parcel, so why is that added in now?
Okay. The council voted to leave the rink out of any negotiations for the middle school, but not to set the zoning on the rink. Just because the rink is included in that doesn't mean it has to be, part of a deal with the middle school. And the middle school itself being Center Business District still has to go through other processes before you can actually deed it to someone or get someone in there. It still has to be, deeded, we still have to finish doing the study on whether the deed is viable to trade and all that stuff. But it's to get something started.
What about like we didn't have zoning on some of the schools, some of the other projects that we had, and then they went and they applied for the special overlay, district development. I mean, is that something that can be done there?
Yeah, I suppose.
It would start a completely new process of setting an overlay district. So you'd have to start an entire public process to set a new zoning with it type of thing, and it does come relatively close to spots.
What happened with the other unusable buildings in town? We sold them to a developer right away, and they came in, they did it SDOD.
Right.
We had passed an ordinance back about 10 years ago, which allowed SDODs, and they came in and did it. A lot of people think that's spot zoning, and we shouldn't be doing it. We have been doing that for many years. And, it's worked for an individual spot, like the hospital.
Yeah.
And an individual spot that was no longer for use for the Dalrymple School and the Chase School, but this is a much larger area. I don't know if DOD would work.
Any RFPs from going out with those buildings. That stuff still went out, so why is that holding it up? I don't understand that.
Well, it was requested by the town manager and assistant that we put it in, so we put it in.
I think, well, again, we can't do an RFP until the zoning is clear. We have residential A on it right now. That limits its use significantly. And then we need some direction. No developer would bid on it with residential A right now. And until we determine what the zoning is going to be and give them an indication, we can't go out to bid. We can continue to have conversations, but we can't even say we want to know what people will do with it until we decide what the zoning is for it. So
my only reservation is that if you include the rink, and that is included, and then somebody comes along and they would answer this RFP, and now they want that rink, what happens then?
So that if you don't, that's the thing. You don't sell it.
You don't sell it.
In all honesty, you can divvy up the building. When you divvy up the building, it limits the amount of space that a developer could envision, type of thing. Again, this is not to look for an elimination of the rink or not to have hockey in town or anything like that. It's just we need to give developers, this is a big site, and the bigger the site, the more developers would be interested in it. And when you get more developers interested in it, maybe more developers would be interested in paying to upgrade the locker rooms instead of the enterprise fund for our town taking on the debt financing for that, for example. That's a $600,000 project that maybe a developer would take on in mitigation to kind of seal the rink as its own building and then build whatever they're going to build next to it, type of thing. But if we cut the rink out of it, then we get nothing from anyone about the rink, type of thing. We're just going to say it's everything next to the rink. We can try to get mitigation from it, but then it's mitigation for the rink or anything else in the area. So we can include it or not. Again, it's one of those things that I've said, I'm agnostic on that. I just want to be able to have a set of rules that we can operate within and go out to bid, because it's been made very clear to my office and even tonight that people want to see something happen, and we can't make anything happen until we have the zoning in place.
Well, didn't also the planning board say that they were willing to create some type of special zoning?
And that would be an overlay district that they'd have to be a whole new process. So.
Councilor Thierry, thanks.
So, we've been told for the last year that there were many developers interested. We were going to have an RFP. We were told that 2 meetings ago there was an RFP process taking place, and then we were told that it would be in the spring. We were never told anything about zoning. We did an RFP for the Dalrymple School.
No, that's not true. We
were never told that there would not be an RFP because there was no zoning. Never.
Okay.
Okay? So, also, we take a lot of work, for example, TSAC. We put together a committee of, experts, public safety, DPW, fire police, and we asked them for suggestions on crosswalks and everything else. And I think it behooves us to take advantage of their recommendations. And the same, I think, could be said for the planning board. These are professionals that give of their time, give a lot of time to the town, and they made a recommendation to us. And again, I think it's short-sighted of us. We're not well, I'll speak for myself. I am not the expert on zoning. I'm going to take a lot of what they say strictly to heart and appreciate the fact that they put in a lot of time and effort, and they believe that this should not be included at this time. My other concern is, I don't think there's any question with anybody in the town that we need to move forward with this site. And I think it's also extremely important that we move forward with the Center Business District. We put people through hell and back over the last 4 years, and I think they need a resolution to their issue, which I think is what the planning board did, and I think they did a really good job at it. I think for us to even try to rezone that middle school and put it in the Center Business District without notifying abutters, this is similar to what a lot of people think happened in 2014, and I don't want to go down that road again. I want to respect the planning board's wishes. I think we owe it to the residents of the center to clean that up and get that map done, and it seems to be in really good shape. I don't want to put off the middle school. I don't want to be like the guy, he doesn't want development, doesn't want this. I think I want to do it right. I think if we want townhouses at the top of Waldemar, it's not mixed use. I don't even think we've clarified what mixed use is. Is it apartments and then a floor of parking, or is it apartments and all commercial? We talk about empty buildings already in town, all over town, and now we're going to go out and put out more commercial. Maybe it's residential we want. Maybe it's to keep a school if we need more space. I mean, we still don't know what we need yet, but I think we can't put it off. I think we have to get going on it. But I think now is the time to settle these people and their issues that they've had for the last 5 years now. Let's get the Center District map done as recommended by the planning board with the adjustments made by the Rules Committee, and let's take the middle school site off it.
Yes.
Thank you, Jim.
I guess for a lot of people, this is a culmination of about 4 years of doing this, and I thank everyone for coming along on the ride. It's been something, but I'm really proud of this process. It's been slow, it's been deliberate, but it has really been democracy in action. We started this in the spring, and we went all through the summer. We had public hearings. We got to this point, and I'm confident that we did all these things to the letter of the law, but. I do have an issue with, and I think it's a valid issue, with the issue of notice. If we are extending the Center Business District, then I'd like to get some clarification on whether or not notification is needed in order to do that. And I've heard we might push this off 1 week. I see there's an issue with the map, as we see on the screen with one of the parcels. I think it would behoove us to make sure that all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed in order to make sure that this process is followed all the way through. But I also think it's important to note that I've always envisioned this process as being a two-step process, where we're defining the boundaries today, and then we're going to determine what is allowable within that at a later date. So I'm not necessarily against extending the Center Business District over the middle school or into the Madison Ave. I just think that we need to make sure it's enforceable in order to do that, because really the decision that we have in front of us right now is between Residential A and Center Business District. And if it's not a decision between doing nothing in Center Business District, I see some serious flaws in potentially zoning that as Center Business District. We've been talking about this residential buffer for the past 4 years, and if you look at that site, the whole thing is adjacent to a residential district. It's not going to meet our needs. And as part of what I hoped that the planning board was going to do is to take these things into account as what I always like to think of as step 2. And as far as the rink goes, I think a lot of people have already talked about, you know, if we change zoning on that map, it doesn't mean we're gonna wake up tomorrow and the rink's not gonna be there. I think it's important to make the distinction between zoning and use. We're not restricting the use of what that site could be, it's just keeping options on the table. And I think that that's really something that we need to keep in our mind as we're doing this. So that's really where I am. I hope between now and the next meeting we can get clarification, because I'm not comfortable extending it right now because I do have questions about a potential defect in notice to the people. So that's where I am.
Any further discussion? Councils? Hearing none, we will have to,
Are you putting it off?
I will use my council privilege to put it off to the next meeting.
If the discussion ends on everything.
that's right, discussion is.
So can I just ask a question?
Not
Point of clarification?
Yeah.
So that ends discussion on this matter tonight. It will be brought up. Do the amendments that were already passed stay passed, or do
They
they
have
come
to
back?
stay
up?
passed.
Okay.
We
Just wanna make
voted
sure
those.
We take it up at the same point. in
Just
time
want to make
next
sure.
week. Yep.
Okay,
It's
and
just-
I would ask that you make sure that David does get that map correct and take out 211 and 207.
Former
for
place.
this year.
I think it's Mike Wang is here.
Pardon?
Mike Wang from Farm and Place, who does the maps, is here.
Can we get clarification to his issues, maybe a member of the planning board here at the next meeting, or some
Well,
type of?
I would like to get legal.
Yeah, we'll check with KP on that. We'll check with outside
KP?
legal counsel.
That woman page. Because the planning board did have that area a light blue.
Yeah.
And so it was
And
part
then-
of the consideration.
Yep.
Okay.
In
Okay.
chapter
Next item on the
97.
agenda is town manager's
You know what?
evaluation.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Rob.
That's all right.
But I just thought of something. So we had gone through the votes for the three of them, but we did not vote because we ended discussion on the middle school and rink site.
Right.
Can I ask?
And we
that-
did not vote on the main motion either.
Okay. Can I ask that we actually have, well, I want to make it as simple as possible, but if we want to move forward, if we end up changing the map again in 2 weeks, and then we vote on a different map in 2 weeks, it's, you know, it was Mr. Ciotis who was talking about transparency. We should have one map that shows it with the school, one map that shows it without the school, and vote on one of those two maps and have those all
So-
out to the public.
So we should have a map put together based on the agreed amendments this evening, and then a separate map, to his point, that doesn't have the school.
Yeah, I believe this map covers everything except for the 211, 207.
Yes.
So we'll get that changed, and
That
then we'll
covers
get
everything.
one that also.
Right
takes
now,
up the
I don't know
middle
if they want to take out, somebody wants to take out the middle school, or somebody just wants to take out the rink. We really should have done this table, we should have had more discussion on it, because what happens now, if somebody only wants to take the rink
Well,
out?
next meeting, next
You
meeting.
know?
I can
Meeting.
live with
Discuss.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Go on for another 6 months.
Next item is the town manager's evaluation. I submitted a cover letter to the evaluation to all members of the council. This is a matter of public record, and please enter into the minutes of the meeting. It was sent email.
Email today.
Email. What I would like
I
each,
didn't have access to email.
okay, what I would like each member of the council to do is to put a list together of goals and objectives for 2020 for the town manager, so that I can finalize this evaluation, okay? Could we get it within the next week and a half? Okay? Thank you. Under new business, transfer $89,836.86 from the MWI Water Capital Project to the Water Sewer Fund, Winthrop Shore Drive. Is this something we have to refer to finance?
Yes.
Even though, do you want to just give us a top line?
Sure. So this is related to the item that I mentioned earlier during the presentation on water sewer. The Winthrop Shore Drive project from 2018, it was originally supposed to cost $1 million per agreement with DCR that the previous administration had. It ended up costing $1 million and then $89,836.86. The previous administration afforded that overage by charging another by turning other funds that were allocated for another project. Those funds are allocated for another project, so it's created a deficit that became evident to me when we were closing out 19. So we've identified some funds through the help of MWRA, some interest that we have on some unused bond proceeds that we can actually use to clean this up so it doesn't continue to hit free cash flow moving forward.
Okay. Motion to refer to finance?
Yes. Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Town council to adopt a supplemental school budget. Councilor Lettieri.
I'd like to make a motion, and I thank the council president and the town manager for moving on this so quickly. I'd like to make a motion that the town council vote to adopt a supplemental school department operating budget for fiscal year 2020, increasing the school department operating budget from $21,275,096 to $21,332,750 to reflect a net increase of $57,714 in state education aid allocated for fiscal year 2020.
Motion is made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A discussion on the motion?
Is this an emergency?
You want to refer it?
Yeah, it should be referred.
Okay.
Yeah, motion referred to Finance Committee.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the Winthrop Foundation distribution of funds. Can you give us a
Sure.
overview?
Do you want to present or do you want me to? I'll do it. So the way the fund documents for the Winthrop Foundation, the fund trust documents were set up, they gave us two options of what to do with the money, because Massport sends the money directly to the municipality, and then the executors of that money are the Winthrop Foundation, which is a 501c3 not-for-profit. They would like to pursue the option of us transferring said funds into an approved bank account, so then they can begin employing an accountant and an administrator to administrate their usage of the funds. So this is at the request of the Winthrop Foundation. This is the path that they would like to pursue. I just met with Russ Sanford, the chair of the foundation, earlier today about it, and they are ready to come close to starting to seek out grant requests and things like that. So the reason why this can be voted on tonight is because it's not actually an appropriation. It's just setting up how to move this money. It doesn't need to go, because it's not our money to appropriate. It's
The money's already here in the general fund?
No, we got, go ahead.
Yeah, so that we do have the money in hand, the town has the money in hand from Massport, and so we need to the town needs to make an election about which one of the options in the trust agreement to fulfill the goal of the trust agreement, whether it's remains with the town, sort of commingled with the town's funds, but the town cannot appropriate from that those funds can only be distributed based on what the trustees want to do with the funds, or whether to simply send them to the Winthrop Foundation to a banking account that they've set up in collaboration with the town.
I think although we can vote on this tonight, it's $500,000. I can't imagine that we're not going to do what the request is, but I would feel much more comfortable if we refer this to finance and vote on it at the next meeting.
Okay, in that event, the foundation wanted to, if you all didn't vote on it tonight, they want to make sure that they're present at the finance committee meeting.
Absolutely.
As well.
Oh, no, and I don't foresee a problem, but it's $500,000, and we just want to make sure we're doing the right thing. It's the first time I've seen this, in this packet, so.
Motion to refer to finance.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Skip that one. Okay, we have two petitions. I'll read both. Town of Winthrop zoning amendment petition. Petition submitted and filed with the Town of Winthrop under the provisions of the Massachusetts General Law 40A Section 5. The petitioners seek the following action by the Winthrop Town Council. Amend the Winthrop Code of Ordinances, Chapter 17.50.210A1 by deleting, and I can't see it. This thing is on it.
It's .75.
.75 and 125 spaces per unit in inserting for mixed-use projects, parking requirements for residential use are 2 spaces per unit. The second petition is the Town of Winthrop zoning amended petition, yeah. One of those nights, kids. petition submitted and filed with the town of Winthrop under the provisions of the Massachusetts General Law 40A, Section 5. The petitioners seek the following action by the Winthrop Town Council. Amending the Winthrop Code of Ordinances, Chapter 17.50.210. Oh, this is the same one, I'm sorry.
No, it's two different.
Okay. The second petition is submitted and filed in the town of Winthrop under the provisions of the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5. The petitioners seek the following action by the Winthrop Town Council. Amend the Code of Ordinances by deleting and/or repealing all of the Chapter 17.50.210D fees in lieu of parking. Now, I'm told that this has to be referred to the planning board.
Yeah, I make a motion that we receive the petitions and refer to the planning board to return to us with a recommendation as soon as possible.
Do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Public comment.
Hi, Kathleen Capuccio. I know it was somehow sidebar tonight, for lack of a better word. I'd like to discuss the town manager's evaluation. Pursuant to the town manager's evaluation, Section 5 of the contract, which I assume he negotiated, or even if he didn't, he certainly executed. Pursuant to that contract, it states, and forgive me for a sec, with regard to his bonus, that the town manager must receive a successful performance evaluation. Not mediocrity, not okay, successful. I put through a Freedom of Information request to get the evaluations, and it frankly wasn't an easy process to talk about the transparency in this town. His evaluation, on average, by the town councilors that put forth their evaluations, was 2.74 out of 5. That is in no way successful. And frankly, a business world that I work in, at that evaluation status, someone might actually counsel you out, is how we refer to in the business world. I have tried to talk to many of you counselors. I've been asked for sidebar conversations. I will not engage in those. I will not engage in those. These are contractual obligations in his contract, which, again, as he says, he's the Austin show. So I'm assuming he had very great legal counsel. He negotiated this contract with the town of Winthrop. A 2.74 is in no way acceptable for a bonus. It is not successful pursuant to the contract that this town manager signed. What I find disheartening, as I'm looking at certain people right now that are giving me eyes on the council, that you didn't even have the respect for a resident to respond to an email regarding what's going on. Know your job. I thoroughly respect, truly, and I'm grateful for so many of you that have put your time out here and have volunteered your time. You put yourself here. Respond to people that are asking you questions, even if you want to shrug your shoulders. Respond, because frankly, that's the job you've asked for. Contractually, there is no way this town manager is entitled to a bonus. In none. No way. So we can have the smug faces, Mr. Farino, and we can do that. But in no way is it acceptable for town councilors to not ask for a job and never respond to your citizens. It's unacceptable. Thank you.
Can I respond? Yes. So I responded through my evaluation of Mr. Faison. Public information. I said it in there. That's what I reported, and that's what I did. There was no more discussion as far as I was concerned. I addressed it. I addressed that issue. So, I mean, no disrespect to you, but that email went out to everybody.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a correspondence through the clerk. And I'm 411. You can call me anytime.
Yeah.
I'm like that with everybody.
I sent you emails and you didn't respond. No, I actually, Ron, actually, I will not lower myself.
Kathleen,
When I asked, no, when we asked.
you've already spoken 3 minutes. Excuse me.
When we asked for public respondents
Please.
to actually engage, and that's actually acceptable. So no, I will not. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilors, anybody wish to be heard? No?
I just want to say, I never saw that email, honestly. I didn't see it. And I lost my phone last week, and I'm still looking for it. So I just want to put that out there.
Huh?
I didn't see the email.
Any further public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Wendy Miller, Precinct 2. I have a suggestion. We talked about it at our Precinct 2 meeting the other night. The park, the middle school, the auditorium, the rink. I know the rink was voted out of being sold. We're keeping that property. That's my understanding as a Precinct 2 person connected to Ingleside Park. However, in conversations we've had about actually being able to use some of the land that the school's already on, before we put it in any kind of zoning, please assign someone to do the title search. Get the right documentation so that, as we talked about, the cart's not before the horse, and we say, we can sell you this, or here's a great place for an RFP, bring in these great people who are gonna say, we're gonna have this, this, and this here, and then we find out, oh no, that corner right here is not included. It's just a suggestion, and I would hope that we would do that before we even consider putting it in the CBD.
So just to note on that, we are working very hard with our outside legal counsel concerning that topic for the title search. So we have been doing exactly what you requested.
Just so long as we do it before we zone it as something that can't be zoned as, I hate to have to go backward. I'd like to see that complete first.
Just, if I could just respond to what Wendy just said too, because my understanding was, and please, if I was misunderstood, let me know. But at the Rules and Ordinance Committee meeting, did the Assistant Town Manager not say that the title search has been done?
I said they were, well, I wasn't at the meeting, and I know.
No, I'm not, I'm asking the chair of the Rules and
I
Ordinance.
believe he said that they
It's
were.
in process, I think.
I thought he said it was complete.
Is it done?
And I was surprised to hear that, and now the town manager's saying that it's not really complete.
He has been the one who's been running point on this.
Right.
He's not here to speak on that, so I apologize for taking
If we
words
can
out of
ask,
his mouth.
if we can just shut that, thank you.
Absolutely.
Michael?
Michael Demento, Precinct 2. In regards to that middle school auditorium rink site being included in the CBD, there should be no inclusion or exclusion of that site until Mr. Faison completes his Ingleside Park Reconstruction Committee. This is in a flood area, and if anyone thinks they can build anything on that site and have rear egress into an underground parking site, that back access road, I'm sure everyone in this room knows, is flooded out. Even at a mid-tide event, it's flooded. So nothing should be done on that site until the Ingleside Park flood area is rectified. I've been told it's 5 to 7 years out. If that be what it is, then this whole discussion of that site should be tabled. And I believe personally, as I'm sure maybe one or two people in the room may agree with me, that that site should be saved for the future children of this town. That we're gonna need another school site. Schools are maxed out now. If the CBD comes to fruition and we're at full density, we're already maxed out on schools. We're gonna need a site. So we need to save that site for the children of this town. Thank you.
Peter Hill, Precinct 5. I would like to recommend or urge the council to vote the map as you have amended it with all your studies, except for the middle school. To get the project going everywhere else, to get everything solidified except that one piece. Then, as follow the planning board's recommendation, that could be rezoned as a modified center business district, or it could be rezoned as something else. But I think by voting that into the center business district, or trying to vote it in with all the controversy, it's an issue. I think it would be very wise to leave it out and then do a new study to decide what you're gonna put there, and how it's gonna be zoned. I think it's unfortunate to hold up the work that you guys have been trying to do for several years to define the existing center district, business district. You were careful up on Winthrop Street, Borough Terrace, and Fremont Street to make it right. I believe putting the middle school in there at this point doesn't make it right. I don't believe we need mixed use, whatever that means. I think it means more retail. We have a lot of vacant retail in the center now. So I urge you to pass the motion as amended and not accept the amendment of the middle school.
Bento just brought up, can you also, when we're looking at the title for the middle school, can we also look at that access point from Brookfield? Because I've heard differing opinions whether, I know back when we were doing the transitional space for when we were building the new high school, we put an awful lot of money into the gym and into that part. And one of the things we did was pave that. We repaved it, and we spent an awful lot of money to do it. But we were told at that point, I would just like to see the legalities of using that as an entrance for whatever happens to go there, or if we would be thinking of going off of Wheelock or off of, if you could just check that when you're checking the title, if we could just check the access point from Brookfield Road.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes.
John Munson, Precinct 2. While you're doing that title research, if you don't mind, I'd like to actually make another request. Can you also see what the legality of the subdivision of that lot would be, so that we could potentially keep some of that land for ourselves, in addition to the rink, potentially subdividing it into 3 lots, one for the development, one for, let's say, a community center, and one for the rink?
Sure. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, Jack.
Thank you. I attended a meeting at the Lyceum Room at the E.B. Newton. I think it was the first meeting that the planning board invited the form in place that drew up a map at that time. I asked to see that map, or have the person that drew up the map bring it to another meeting, but I never got a response on that question. As I remember it, there was the rink at the bottom of the site, and then there was a development at the top of the old high school that was built in 1895 and added on to in 1910.
I'm sorry.
And then there was a green space in between those 2 parcels. I'd like the person to bring that map that you made, that we paid you for, to the next meeting, so that everybody can see that again, if you would. I've asked for it, this is the second time I'm asking for it.
That's part of the CBD master planning document. That's a public.
I'd like to see that map.
That map is in the document.
I don't want to talk to you. If you want to, this is my public comment period. You didn't want to talk to me, or you didn't want to talk to anybody else, but all of a sudden, something's going against you, then you want to talk about it.
Jack,
So
just
if you
make
want
your
to bring
statement.
something up, put it on the agenda. So I'd like that map to be produced at a meeting. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I just want to say a few words about the town manager's evaluation. Jim took over the committee on committees after a resignation, and there was some miscues, information that was not passed down. In fact, the council never received a recommendation as to what the goals and objectives for the town manager were for the year 2019. It was flawed, unfortunately, and once we realized that, I tried to set it straight, and that was the reason why I made a statement evaluating the town manager. I work with the town manager on a daily basis, and I know his strengths, I know his weaknesses. We all have our flaws. I think he's done a decent job considering what we inherited on this council. If you think back, you know, the 3 court suits that we were faced with, the loss of a counselor, the resignation of another, the attendance of another. It's almost like we were on 3 cylinders, but we still managed to get through the year. This is public record. It's my evaluation, and I put that as part of the evaluation that was submitted by Jim's committee. That's all I have to say. We're pleased to announce the winner of the picture to be gracing the front page of the 2019 Winthrop's annual report booklet. Amy Rodriguez was first place, second place was Kathleen Trainer, and third place was T.K. Morgan. T.K. Morgan will be placed on the back cover of the booklet. The town council thanks them, and maybe we'll get them in there and give them some citations, because I think they deserve it. Today is White Cane Day. Usually we have the proclamation, but I don't have it to read. The Chamber of Commerce SIP of Winthrop is at the Cottage Park Yacht Club from 7 to 9, November 1st. The election is November 5th, and November 19th is the annual Fog Forum. Any council like to add to that?
I'm going to have my precinct meeting on Tuesday, October 29th, 7 o'clock at the E.B. Newton Lyceum.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.